Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
Good, nice to meet you. I'm Sheila.
I'm Joe. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Where are you
Joe, let me
located? Yeah, go
let
ahead.
me click something. Something just dinged and I'm like, oh, I thought I had turned that
Uh-oh.
off.
Yeah,
But
you're fine.
quit mail. Okay, good. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, we should be. Yeah, sometimes those things get silenced out. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks.
Where
How
are
are
you
you?
located? I'm great. Where are
I'm
you
up,
located?
I'm up in Maine.
Oh, great. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of the places on the map that I want to get to at some point. So, yeah.
it is beautiful up here. It's lovely, really.
Yeah. Well, I
We don't
figure
invite too many people.
right. I get that. You don't want the party to get out. I just keep thinking that someone like Stephen King, if he's decided that's where he wants to live his life out, how bad can it be?
Yeah, he lives in more northern Maine, but yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It is literally just so beautiful here. I went
Yeah.
for a long walk this morning. I saw an eagle, the ocean, it's just
Yeah.
it's
That
it's
that's
nice.
wonderful.
Where are
So
you?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So well, hey, it's great to meet you. And I want to begin our conversation with what we've all just lived through for the last 3.5 years, which is a global pandemic. How did you get through it and how did it change you?
Well, the pandemic for me, as so I'm a pediatrician.
Yes.
Um, I'm a pediatrician. I'm also a mom, so I had a school age child at the time, and I had a full time job. But interestingly, um, uh, when I look back, we're still kind of in the pandemic. I mean, people are still sick with COVID, and but obviously we're in a much different place than we were.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, the pandemic was a huge slowdown in because we were told as physicians, the kind of physician that I was, an outpatient pediatrician, so just doing like well child checks, sick visits. For the first time in my whole life, I got to stay home.
Wow.
um, and so I had been 20 years like working a lot, working at least a full-time job and sometimes almost up to a 2.0 and 2.0 FTE,
Yeah.
so to speak. So I had just chosen to work a lot in my life. So the pandemic, they were like, you stay home. We need you to stay home. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So even though terrible things were happening for me personally, it was a reset for me. It was a chance to sleep. It was a chance to recharge, and it was a chance for me to personally take restock of my life and what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
Uh, I was homeschooling my son at the same time. We very quickly switched to telehealth medicine, which I loved,
Mhm.
and I think is super valuable for people. And it's such an efficient way to deal with a lot of medical problems and mental health problems. Um, but I know the pandemic was really terrible
Yeah.
for so many people, and so many children lost family members. I don't even know what the numbers up to anymore, but
Yeah.
it was really, really high. So the pandemic, was just something. Even as a doctor, I never thought it really was not on my radar screen.
Yeah.
um kind of thought like, oh, Ebola, I'm scared of Ebola. Like that virus is so easily transmissible, and but it just kind of wasn't in my consciousness or in my like plausibility that something like that could happen here to all of us.
Yeah.
Even though, looking at the past, of course that could happen to us. Now we look back, but as a physician, me and my friends, all of us doctors, were like, what is happening, what is going on,
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah. During the pandemic, my wife had a movie on that was mimicking what would happen if a pandemic happened, and it
oh,
was what happened. Like
yeah,
there was the conspiracy group, there was
yeah,
the people that were wearing masks.
yeah.
Everything was in this kind of chaotic state, and just how it moved so fast. It was wild how accurate it was. And it was made in like 2015, something like that. So it's like
Wow.
Sometimes art can imitate life. It's wild,
Yeah.
you know.
We had been through, and even me as in my time as being a doctor, H1N1, that version of influenza, that was considered a pandemic, and that was a really nasty virus for children to get that influenza strain, but certainly not to the extent of COVID.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
So so let's get to the essence of exactly what you do right now for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day, and one of the kids looks up and is curious and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
what I do is I help families learn how to eat, learn what foods are going to make them stay healthiest in their bodies, feel the best, so that they can live the life they want. So I help your mom, little third grader, or usually it's a mom, sometimes I help dads, but
Yeah.
I help your parents kind of figure out the best way for your family to eat, sleep, move, and manage stress and manage emotions so that your family can decide on their own what the best way for you guys to live your life is and be super healthy.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I am not sure I can even remember that far back. I think I probably wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
My dad was a doctor, so I kind of always had that in my background too, or in my mind too. But I loved animals, and like most third graders, I loved little kids. I loved babies ever since I was a little kid myself. So I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to do something with kids.
So what about heroes? Who's been a hero for you in your life?
Oh, geez. Um, my parents, I don't know, does everyone say that?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I've had a lot. I've been super lucky to have a lot of really great role models, I guess. And I guess I would definitely say my parents were my biggest influence. And my biggest, both my mom and my dad, even though they're, very different. My dad from a professional standpoint, and my mom more from a maternal, you know, how to raise a child, how to be a loving presence in somebody's life. Um, so both of them have been very important to me. Lots of coaches. I'm a sports person, and I have a lot of really good friends that I really admire and see how they're living their lives. And um, so, yeah, I'm lucky. I feel like I have a lot of positive, people out there.
I've always wondered in states that don't have professional teams, who do you root for? What sports do you follow? What goes on in Maine?
We Here in New England, we are New England Patriots,
Gotcha.
and then hockey. So it's basically the Boston sports teams.
Gotcha. Okay.
Boston Bruins, the Celtics.
Okay.
We're big hockey. I'm a big hockey fan. My son
Okay.
plays hockey. I played hockey in college even, and so we're huge Bruins fans.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So, what's been the best advice you've ever gotten?
Um, let's think about that for 1 second. Well, most recently, like in the last 5 years, I learned this skill, and I guess it would be considered advice, but I was taught the skill of thinking on purpose, and uh, thinking about my future, my future self, and how I wanted that to be, and how I wanted myself to be. And I learned the skill, and it's through coaching. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Um, and so, once you feel empowered to create the life you want or the situation you want, and knowing how to do that for yourself, it's just amazing. It's a gift. It's freeing. It's so empowering.
Yeah.
um, my dad gave me a great piece of advice a long time ago when I was just out of college. I was in graduate school in molecular biology and wasn't sure what I should do because I was already what I felt old at 25. And I was like, well, I don't know if I should go to medical school because um, I'm going to be really old. Again, quotes, by the time I get out of medical school, I'll be 32 or, or by the time I get out of my residency, I'd be 32. That would be like the first time I would have like a quote, real job. Um, and he said, Sheila, you're going to be 32 years old. Anyways, that time is going to, you're 25, you are going to be 32 sometime. Anyways, do you want to be a 32-year-old doctor or do you want to be a 32-year-old whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And that was a really big thought shift. That was an eye-opening thing. It didn't occur to me to think that way
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's definitely older person wisdom right there, you know?
Yeah, for
So,
sure. For sure. Yeah.
so if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, these are such fun questions.
Yeah.
Um, well, if we were talking sports, I would love to meet a guy who just retired. His name is Patrice Bergeron. He's the captain of the Bruins.
Okay.
He's going to be a Hall of Fame hockey player. Just such an amazing sportsman, such an amazing person, what he seems to be. I don't know if that's too granular for
No,
everybody, but
no, that's
um,
good.
yeah, I don't, yeah. I mean, there's so many, there's so many
Right.
people.
Yeah. So I guess along those lines, being a hockey fan, if you could go back in time and see one sporting event with your own eyes, where are you going? What do you want to watch?
I should probably know it, but you remember? Have you ever seen? Are you a hockey fan? Like Bobby Orr, Bobby
Oh
Orr
yeah.
from the
Oh
Bruins.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That I think it was one of the Stanley Cup games where he went flying. They have a picture of him flying through the ice, over the ice, scoring a goal.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's a statue of him in Boston of him doing that. I mean, that would have been incredible to see that in real
Yeah.
time. For sure. That would have been fun.
So the best answer I ever got to this
Yeah.
question was somebody actually said, I want to be at the 1980 game where we won the gold against the Russians again. And
Oh,
I went, what? You were there? And he was like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I couldn't, because no one on the planet thought that we were going to win. No matter how much
I
momentum
know.
they had, we didn't have the sports pundits. No one was really like analyzing and breaking it down. It was just, this is
They were
Russia and no one
college
beats them.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah,
way.
I watched that on TV. I still have a Sports Illustrated, like when they were all their little pictures were on the
Man.
front. And, oh my gosh, that was epic. And if you're from Maine, Maine hockey had a epic comeback too with a couple players, Jim Montgomery, who happens to be the coach of the Bruins right now, and this guy Paul Correa,
Yeah.
and then they won the national championship one year with some really incredible like comeback from behind games. So
Yeah. Well, we got a minor league team here, the Mavericks, and I think it's the farm system for Calgary or something like that. So we're kind of getting, we used to have a team called the Scouts years ago,
okay.
and I think Kansas City could vet and get one of those teams, but I always, as somebody that's kind of on the outer edges of hockey, I like it, but it's not my sport. I always love it when they play that one game outside and it's snowing and it's in a
Oh yeah,
massive, those are
the
always
Winter
so cool.
Classic. Yeah,
Yes. I mean, I wish they would do that more. It's like the Field of Dreams game, like the pageantry of the sport is
yeah,
such a big deal. It's why we tune in, you know?
yeah. It's
So,
super fun. I think it's around January every year they do it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
awesome.
totally cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, you've picked a profession where you have to give a lot of yourself. What is it that motivates you, that gets you out of bed, that gets you to help people be better and to also be who you are?
Well, I yes, I love helping people. Yes, I love helping people. Yes, it takes a lot, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of sleepless nights, lots of all of that. But it actually feels really good to help people,
Yeah.
to And I've been privileged in so many ways to have the opportunity to learn all the skill sets that I've learned that allow me to help people, which allow me to, enjoy that and feel good about doing that. Um, and like I said, I really just have such a soft spot for kids,
Yeah.
babies, and kids, um, and their parents who are trying, and the people who love them who are really trying to really help them and help them. You know, be healthy and be able to figure out who they are and live their best life. That's like that's so satisfying for me.
Yeah. So what's one of your favorite success stories as a coach?
Oh geez. Well, you know, a lot of times parents are very fearful. uh, a lot of we parent are, do you have kids?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 So, like sometimes, we make decisions or we become extremely fearful for our kids' future, and in so many different areas. But, one family is coming to mind where the parents were just, the mom especially was so fearful of uh, that her child was going to suffer from bullying, suffer from uh, you know, what she considered potentially negative things that could happen to the child because of the child carrying extra weight.
Yeah.
Uh, and 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 when a mom, or when she, I guess I'll just use that specific example, was feeling that way, that was transmitting to her child,
Yeah.
and her child was sensing maybe not exactly the fear, but she knew, she got the message like something's not right. My mom is something, something's not right here, and it's coming from me. And so then there's that, well, is something wrong with me? And then the child feels off. So working with a mom, helping her realize that her thoughts were creating this fear for her that wasn't a reality, um, and it might become a reality, but we're not there. They're not
Yeah.
there yet, so you don't have to live in that reality right now. But what happened was the mom changed, and the mom became more of a calm presence and a calm influence, and without even involving the child in any kind of discussion, the mom would say that their relationship was so much better and that their child just seemed happier and brighter, because when the child looked at the mom, now she wasn't seeing someone who was mirroring back fear and worry and concern to her. She was just seeing someone who mirrored back, unconditional acceptance and love for her kid. Um, which, what a gift to give to your kid, for
Yeah.
every parent out there.
Well, it's like they always say, if you get around an animal and you're afraid, they're going to sense it immediately. They just pick it up. There's that
Mm.
sense. And I have my son's on the spectrum. He has a long arm on his 15th chromosome. So it's spectrum. And there's been a lot of developmental delays. But throughout his life, I've tried to really just have him just keep doing things that would be regular things. Like I, you know, I think that's the key. If the kids feel what you're giving them and that you're imbuing a level of confidence and, we can do this, you can do whatever you want to do. I think it just radiates through them. And he senses things in people anyway. So you got to be real careful because he'll pick it up quick. He's like a bloodhound. So
Well, you want him to feel like every single child, like we want them to feel that they are perfect the way they are,
yeah,
just
sure.
for who they are. And of course, we want them to evolve, we want them to grow, we want them to have new experiences. So perfection doesn't mean staying just stuck where you are,
Yeah,
but you're not trying to change, or we need you to be different, with weight loss, or for weight kids with extra weight. We don't want that message to be like, you need to lose weight to be more acceptable, you need to lose weight to be better, quote, or to be more attractive, or to be whatever. That's
yeah,
not the message at all. We want to start from a place of, you're already perfect, right where you
sure.
are right now.
Yep.
And let's work on our health.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. If you have a dream tonight, you run into a 20-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what advice would you dispense on that younger version of you?
Wow. Well, I would dispense some medical advice, actually. And because for me, I've struggled with my weight since I was 10 years old and moving on up. So when I was 20, I don't know exactly where I was, but I struggled with like 40 pounds on, 40 pounds off. I was somewhere in this roving, but extra weight for sure. So the advice I would give myself would be to that weight loss, or how to manage my whole body, not just my weight, but my whole body is the food choices that we need to be making. And so I'm 55 now. Back, 35 years ago, it didn't occur to me, and I didn't know, and no doctors were telling us that these highly processed foods that we're eating so much of are detrimental to our health. They're
Yeah,
not neutral. They're not just like, oh, yeah, I know I could be making a better choice. It turns out they're actually harmful for us, in every aspect, like our metabolic health. And then now we're really, really starting to understand the link between our metabolic health and mental health. So, I would give that 20-year-old advice like, yes, these foods, they're available. You can certainly buy them, but that doesn't mean they're safe, and they are gonna you have to learn how those foods are affecting you,
yeah,
um, and then with that knowledge you can make the choices that you want to make.
yeah. So everyone out there has a perception of you. There's all these pockets of people, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are? This is the therapy question.
Yeah, this is really, um I don't know if this is an exact answer, but I feel like my truest self and my best self when I'm parenting my son, like
Yeah.
being a mom. I wanted to be a mom for so long, and I don't certainly get everything right. Ask
Right.
my son, um, but I'm trying, and I love. I'm coming from love. I feel so much love for him, um, and I'm a person who thinks a lot. Uh, so this parenting thing has been just a wonderful experience for me. I didn't have my son until I was 42.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd wanted a child for so long, and I just feel so grateful for every day with him.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when I really think of like my authentic self, like I'm my authentic self with him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that answer. So if anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more about you, anything about your world, where's the best place to go?
I have a website. It's my name, SheilaCarrollMD.com. I'm also on LinkedIn is another place professionally. Yeah, and my email is on my website.
Okay.
So yeah, I help moms, usually moms, like I said, but I help parents just uh, try to help change themselves
Yeah.
so they can help their kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've done that. I've followed that throughout my life. There's been examples. I mean, I remember I was, you know, probably at least a year before Miles was born, I quit smoking. I just was like, I don't want him seeing it because I know what it did to my dad. He saw everyone, all of his kids smoking, and it's like, he was smoking 2 packs a day for decades, and it's not the reason, but it certainly is one of those things. It's a part of your psyche that gets woven in.
Yeah, yeah, and that's amazing that you were able to do that. What a feet. Good, that's amazing, you know. But
Yeah.
the thing that you're pointing to is that our kids are watching
Yeah.
everything that we're doing and
Absolutely.
learning from us,
Absolutely.
all of our habits, and not that we have to be perfect, but we definitely, I think at the end of the day, probably most parents want to at least feel that they're doing what they're doing on purpose
Yeah.
and kind of not unconscious, not unconsciously going through the day just scrolling or eating whatever. If you can kind of be aware that your kids are modeling, going to be modeling you, and then how do you want to be on purpose as a
Yeah.
parent and as a role model for them?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than do as I say, not as I do. That's never that's never sound at all for anybody. So it's the way it is. Hey, I got to tell you, one of the most terrifying things I went through with Miles when he was 3.5, he got an acute pneumonia, and I went into the pediatrician's office and they put that monitor on his finger. They did it
Also,
like 6 times. They kept coming back. There's no way his number's that low. And then they
uh,
were like looking at the machine, like the machine was broken, but his oxygen level was crazy, crazy low. And they're like, you got to get him to a hospital. I said, all right, I'll do it. I don't want to freak him out because of, him being on the spectrum and extra sensory. I'm like, I'll drive him there and do it. But I remember just thinking, can you guys just say, all right, we got a problem. We need to get out of here. Because we just kept
mm,
sitting there waiting and waiting. And the number was like 87. It was really, really low. So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
that was, it was kind of, it was probably as close to like feeling what COVID would have been like, because he had to get hooked up to the oxygen, and he was in
yeah.
the hospital for about 5 or 6 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I know that can be really, really, really challenging for parents to see their kids like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
He
poor
for hi-
guy.
yeah, for him it was like he was enamored with it. I made a hospital book when he got out. There was pictures, there was notes, all of his pals. He was in kindergarten, gave him cards. His principal came to the school. It was like a circus.
Yeah.
So not so much for me.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah,
sure.
it
Yeah,
was
it's
wild.
way more challenging for the parents.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Hey, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking time out. Best of luck with everything. Keep doing the good work.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.